What's good? What's good? What's good, everyone? This is your girl Nala-Ife for House of Cards Tarot, and we are here tonight. Shout out to BB. No worries, BB. I'm happy to answer a couple of questions. This is going to be a very interesting read. Thank you for watching or joining me in the live for the case that we are looking at. The revisiting of the assassination of Malcolm X. My spirit is already here. Okay. So we will be looking over what is to, I guess, come of this revisiting. If there's going to be more information that we're unaware about as it relates to the life and times of Malcolm X. We're just with spirit, and I'm going to allow spirit to guide me. We do have some questions. If you guys have questions, make sure to leave them in the chat. I'm not going to, I said that I wasn't going to suspend the questions for the other chat, but I just thought about something. Let me update the description bar, okay? So that if you are on the other channel, if you're watching me, for instance, from House of Cards Talk Live, make sure to join us if you would like to chat in the chat room here at House of Cards Tarot. Okay. I'll worry about the description bar in just a moment. Give me just a moment, guys. It's cool here. It's really cool here right now. So I just find it really interesting that as soon as I got into this, that the room started to heat up. Most of the time when spirit is with you, you'll hear people talk about it being very cool in the room. Okay. But I'm getting a different vibe right now. So we're just going to vibe for a minute. I'm updating both of the platforms. Give me just a moment, everybody. I'm updating the description bar, so if you have to come in and go out, completely understand. Because this is definitely a special reading. Okay. Hey there, BB. You said here, moles and informants, how detrimental are they to the revolution and movement? Was the Nation of Islam and FBI colluding together against him and his movement? Are they still in union? Hoover and why? Okay. Okay. I'm going to test something out in just a moment. Give me a moment, everyone. If you're watching this back, just fast forward. Come on now. Okay, everything's updated. And I still have the chat in both rooms. I apologize, everyone. Hey there, Tawanda. What's going on? What's going on? I'm going to do this live. I think I'm going to shuffle and see if we have permission to move forward. Spirit here. I call upon my ancestors as the intermediary between me and the spirits that are sanctioned by the former Malcolm X to speak. Okay. there's a batteredness here. There's a burden. Okay. Okay. There is an energy that's I have to acknowledge this. Spirit is trying to have me acknowledge this. There's a feminine energy that may be trying to block this. They could have fire energy. They're trying to block it, I'm being told, or slow the development up. Okay. Okay. There's a female energy that's probably quintessential to the case. So, are we allowed to proceed? Please remove the influence and send back the energy times 10 to any interference that's here. I am sanctioning the removal of any energy that seeks to block the connection. If you are watching this now, please fast forward. We're just doing some house cleaning prior to the start of this reading. Okay. 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 Any energy that seeks it within their heart to block this reading, send that energy back to them tenfold. I am in full agreement of them receiving that, to not be blocked or undone. Okay. Okay. Perfecto. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Do we have clearance to proceed? Do we have clearance to proceed? Do we have clearance to proceed? Perfecto. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with the case. I'm going to do an energy check in just a moment. Okay. You guys, welcome to House of Cards Live, or House of Cards Tarot and House of Cards Talk Live. I am your tarot reader and divination expert, Nala-Ife, okay? And this is going to be a reading on the assassination of Malcolm X, the case being opened about the people who were indicted, or who, not just indicted, but the people who were sent to prison on behalf of this, okay? We have several questions that have already been formed. Thank you. Big shout outs to my girl, BB. I'm going to check the comment section in just a moment. I am doing house cleaning for the energy. Okay. And I'm not going to play with any type of interference. Okay. Because this is bigger than pettiness. Okay. So I'm going to state that here and state my claim. And then we're going to do one more energy check. And then we'll hop into it. Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, justice is going to be balanced in this case, okay? I would like to know, first and foremost, will there be anyone who's exonerated? And I'm going to get into the questions, BB, that you submitted to me and what's going on in the chat. But I'm going to be led by the first question that I have. I want to know, in this case that's being reopened, is this to exonerate? Will this end in exoneration of at least two of the men who were charged with the murder of Malcolm X? Will this lead to them, their name being exonerated? There's going to be a major fight with this case. Okay. There's a lot of money that they're going to have to dole out to bring balance to this case. It's not going to be a case that's quickly won. There are going to be multiple lawyers, multiple groups. The problem here with this case in exonerating them, at least two of the men who were charged with the assassination, the problem here is the fight in the courts and the fact that certain things were sealed by the FBI and by the CIA. If there is exoneration of these men, then it's going to blow the lid off of everything that has been fed to the public since the death of Malcolm X. The reason why currently, and I'm going to say this currently, this is not to dissuade anyone from standing up for justice for the men who were not responsible for his death. But the problem is running out of funds and feeling as though the fight is meritless. There are going to be people who assign themselves to this case for the popularity of it, but the way things are going, they are not seeking that they're going to get exoneration completely. And it is actually not of the benefit that the public knows that the case is being retried. They're trying to avoid retrying the case altogether because it states it will open up a lot of cases or a lot of situations as it relates to the gunning down of certain civil rights leaders. Okay. So these men or women, men and women who are trying this case are not doing it in vain. But there is an edge with these people where they're looking for some sort of glory, and this is where they're at fault, because this is not a case that comes with glory individually or for the particular lawyers. This is a case that one has to have the heart to push through. They're saying that someone's drunk on power, and this is why this case, because of the success of the Central Park Five, it's not that they're seeking recognition like celebrity from that they truly are looking to do good, but the heart isn't necessarily in the right place, because it is almost to make themselves, someone has the energy to make themselves a hero, but the heart is seeking some sort of victory. And this may be something where, again, when they're getting close to the end, not close to the end, but as the case starts to pick up, they're looking at what the celebrity behind it. Okay, this can change. That's what I'm seeing here. This can't change. This is not the absolute fate of it. But the way that the lawyers are going into it, I'm hearing, it doesn't build, it doesn't, they don't contain the character to see it through the way it needs to be sought through. There are many different factors. I have to ask, will the Nation of Islam be one of the factors as to why the lawyers are not able to try this case or get this case to exonerate at least two of the men that were charged with the murder of Malcolm X? Two of Swords, Seven of Swords, the Empress. This is dealing with the wife, the offspring and the children, victory, six, and judgment. So the Nation of Islam is putting in heavy energy to create confusion, pay off certain people, certain judges potentially, to wash this case. They're going to use examples of Malcolm X's children because there's something connected with Malcolm X and his family, his remaining descendants, to try to plex them into a position to where they can't move forward. And that judgment is major here. Okay. Will additional forces be enacted to help with the case of exonerating at least two of the men who were charged with the murder, the assassination of Malcolm X? Money, they're going to tie their money up. They're working to tie their money up. There's eyes on different organizations that have been trying to do this. So this is something that even before the documentary that was in works, okay? Families that are involved. There is definitely, straight across the board, this is a solid yes. There are other organizations that will be coming in. But let me tell you something. People need to be careful. Okay, people need to be very careful with this. Some people literally have their life on the line because of those who profited from the death of Malcolm X. Those who profited from the death of Malcolm X, they're juggling this fine line. They're juggling a fine line. I don't, is this, let me see. Is there potential payout to Malcolm X's descendants to silence them? Has there been payout, or will there be payout to Malcolm X's descendants to silence them so that they are not able to be an instrument in this case? King of Swords, I don't like that. Someone has been using spin cycle. What I'm seeing here is that there's no payout, but what it looks like is there, some of the family, some of the descendants, someone that's in a family has obtained some sort of position. They have obtained some sort of position, and that position is threatened by them. Let me ask this question. Are the descendants open to the reopening of this case? Are the descendants open to the reopening of this case? They're tired, y'all. They have been through quite a lot. They're very tired. Their lives have been shifted. Some of them have been placed into poverty to taint the legacy of Malcolm X. So right now, as it stands, they are not, at least not collectively. There's a one woman who is, but she doesn't have the support of other family members or other descendants for finding out the truth, because there's been a lot of backstabbing. There's been a lot of worry, a lot of trauma to the descendants of Malcolm X as a result of a major cover up, to the point where the children's future, I'm hearing, has been held back to ensure, to ensure something. What I'm getting here, this is deep, but almost to ensure that his spirit, or the spirit of Malcolm X, does not rise up again. And I know this is getting esoteric. You are on a tarot channel. What the hell do you expect? You know what I'm saying? But there are efforts to ensure that this energy doesn't rise up again. And this is what has the lawyers lost, because of the money to retry the case, because they don't have support of the descendants. And this is even true that there isn't support from the descendants of the men accused of the murder of Malcolm X. Okay. Let's do an energy check really quick. Let me see here. That's a good question, BB. I'm going to answer that question, and I'm going to get into your other questions in just a moment. But I'm going to do an energy check here. Will the truth help the descendants of Malcolm X? Will the truth, as it relates to his assassination, assist in any way the descendants of his descendants, the descendants of Malcolm X? Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Hands down, it would. Because they're old. They're old. Yes, it would. It would be some sort of freedom. Because the truth coming out would also lead to a wide held belief of the people, the real killers, the real people who conspired against Malcolm X. It would bring a lot of the falsehoods to the light. Are all of those men, I'm just going to do this right here, are the two men outside of the conspirator, are the two men that were accused, did they actually assist in the assassination of Malcolm X? Let's just go ahead and ask. At least two out of the three. This is separate from the man who actually admitted to it. Are they responsible? These men have been in jail, y'all. They are not responsible. The two men who were locked up were not responsible. That's what you see here, bars. They were allowed to rot in prison. The exchange, however, was that someone paid off the families of these men to not pursue any additional cases. Some man who was in some kind of position, some sort of king, they were paid off. The family members were paid off or promised some sort of protection or some sort of position or prestige to not help exonerate these two men who were left to rot in prison. Okay? That's the issue. That's one of the issues that dirties this case up, is that there should be a paper trail about money paid to the survivors of the two men who were not connected to the one man who claimed that he, in fact, was a part of the assassination. See a lot of male energy. You see what I'm saying? There's money involved. King of Cups, another male energy to turn their back. When I see the Three of Wands, I think of someone turning their back in favor to watch their ships come in. And this was the collection, the coins. There was someone paid within the family group to not continue to press on. Were these men, the men who are innocent of the murder and assassination of Malcolm X, are they aware that their family was paid off or received some sort of financial benefit? They were aware. But the case, the way that it's almost like they were aware, but the spirit was already broken. They didn't see themselves leaving. They felt like, and I want you to look at this card here. For whatever reason, this card here reminds me of like police fraternity. It reminds me of like a fraternity for the FBI or CIA. This case, the way that it was tried, it left no room for these men's innocence. And it almost like the spirit broke itself. There was delusion with this, that it was almost like at least my family may benefit. That was the decision that they made. They sacrificed themselves. Irrespective, because of the way the case, they didn't see how they would be let out. America hated them. America blamed them. They were even told that if they were to come free or if they were not to comply, they would be killed, because they were the men who killed Malcolm X. Like they felt like the way that it was pushed, the man who actually admitted to it, this was his sacrifice to whatever organization he worked for, because he believed in that. He has since then, obviously those opinions have changed, but these men's spirit were broken, and they felt like their family could live through their shortcomings. This is really an atrocity. They were left to rot for a crime that they did not commit. Those men are innocent straight up and down. Straight up and down. They were damned either way it went. Either way it went. And what is sad about this situation, what's even sadder about this situation, and I know that we have a lot of young people who follow under certain doctrines, and they believe that if you stand up for the people, you are a fool. Okay? Because they have short attention spans and they look for quick results. Okay? Very foolish. They're not looking at time over time. Okay? I'm going to at least agree with them in this, because that same energy is what broke those men. Those two men who have sat there and rotted in prison did more than just give up. It allowed for men who were responsible for the death of Malcolm X to be able to be home to raise their children, be pillars in the community, aid in the inception of a lot of programs that deterred our people. Okay? They were allowed to be instrumental in the redirection of Black Americans or people around the world. They saw their children go off to college, become upstanding citizens, and they never did a day in prison. While these men's lives have been affected, they have been branded, they were beat, they were tortured by other inmates who were sure that they were responsible for the deaths or the death of Malcolm X. And I say deaths because those who was coming through to me is that those who are responsible for the death of Malcolm X also have additional blood on their hands of people who had information that could have exonerated these men, and also pull out people who were considered leaders that were placed as leaders in the Black community, to essentially make sure that people of color remained sheep. Some people who were responsible for this, irregardless to them believing in Christianity or not, were in churches. They were in the Nation of Islam. They're responsible for certain sectors, because there are certain, and I'm going to get into the questions in just a moment. But what I'm feeling here is that they are responsible for certain subcultures of FBI and CIA groups that claim to, because y'all know the FBI has different sectors, right? And those sectors are not all in the same accord. The president is not even aware of certain groups within the FBI and the CIA. Some of those groups are investigating one another. Okay, so just let's keep it above. But there are certain people who were set to profile things in the Black community, or people of color within the communities, and their whole purpose, though they thought they enlisted a lot of brilliant young men, and they also enlisted people who maybe had priors, who are felons. I don't know really the legal name for it, but for people who were looking to get out of jail, but they're very promising. They have a record on them, and in exchange of their expunged record, they also have been listed as agents for the FBI and the CIA. Okay, and a lot of these groups within these organizations, though they may, to some of the young Black men or women, or even white men or women who are seeking justice, they don't understand that they are part of a larger cover-up. Okay, a larger cover-up. So there are operations within the FBI, what I'm being shown here, and the CIA, They have military. They have social media is a major hub for these individuals. So don't think that it's not. Also, they've infiltrated other groups. Okay, and a lot of the people who are working for them believe that they are doing something to wake the people up, when in actuality that's not what's happening. They're given assignments in exchange for a form of clout. Okay, and they create mass confusion to ensure certain things don't see the light of day. The exchange of it is that if we get certain people who are responsible directly for Malcolm X because they agreed to some sort of terms, then that's a success. But we can't open everything up, because then it's going to uncover how everyone hands are dirty or something like that. I'm getting hands are dirty. There are people who are within the FBI who actually supported some of the Black Panthers, I'm being told. They went rogue, and at first they were infiltrating, certain groups, but then these people went rogue. I don't know what this has to do with the case, okay, because I'm really ignorant to this, but something about these groups in the FBI and CIA that went rogue when it came to the Black Panther Party and some of the other movements. There are certain other movements that were not popularized, that were local to certain cities. There was a group that I'm being shown in Texas. These people are very important. Okay, I'm trying to ask. They're important because this brings is connected to Central Park 5 and how these lawyers got on the team, and why they are asking to have the assassination looked at again. There are certain people who were a part of the FBI or CIA that have gone rogue. There's a central hub in Houston, Texas. There's another hub in Charlotte, North Carolina. There is another hub that's out of course, we know Los Angeles, and I'm being shown Chicago and Detroit, Michigan. But the Chicago and Detroit, Michigan, something was connected in Chicago and Detroit, Michigan, as far as a sector of radicalists who were thought to be dispersed in the 80s or 90s. But these people aren't. There's something about people too abroad in Venezuela. There's a group that's in whoa, I mean, this is crazy. There's a couple of groups that have fled to South America, they're telling me, but they're still active. That's why you're going to start to see a rise. They're saying that they're responsible. The same group, they're responsible for an uprising in Haiti and also in Puerto Rico and Cuba. There's a group that's out of Cuba, and I do know that Fidel Castro was good friends with Malcolm X. So there's an uprising between, I do know that just from knowledge that I'm being shown, okay? But what I'm being told is that what they're telling me is that I incorrectly asked the first question. The case that's being done now is having trouble, but the groups that I saw that would be paying for additional lawyers, because they're going to see that this is trouble, that there's trouble. There's a lot of pressure being put to either destroy or hide some records. But there were people infiltrating these groups and sending digital records or physical copies of records out of the country to preserve them to a later date so that these situations could be reopened up. It's something of that nature. Okay. So now that we're in here, okay. BB asked, moles and informants, how detrimental are they to the revolution and movement? I'm being told that the moles and informants, believe it or not, some of the people were within the camps that were watching of Martin Luther King. There's a connection there. Okay. There's a connection between the two. There were talks between these two figureheads, Dr. Martin Luther King um, and Malcolm X, which led Malcolm X to understand that his life was in danger. I'm being told that right now. There were talks between them in private about this group that was moving. Something about Martin Luther King knew a lot more about what was going on in the organization of the Nation of Islam than we are being told. Okay. But before he could be active, of course, we know what happened here. Okay. There were people who were tied to both organizations trying to secure the legacy of both men that could not be trusted. Okay. Both had handlers. Both had handlers. There was a female who has information. She's probably most likely, I don't know if this woman is still alive, but she's responsible for getting some information out of the country as it related to these two men. Okay. But the damage was already done. The people who I'm being told that they counted on were in it and they had evidence of that, but they tried to move in a certain way in order to make sure that their families were not harmed any further. But the abuse of the families and the situations continued even after the death because they wanted to ensure any information that they received, if Betty Shabazz is who I'm referencing. Her energy's coming through now. Betty Shabazz had information, but it's almost as if they wanted to kill or hurt the legacy of the family. I'm being shown that majorly to take their power away, to reopen or to try other avenues. She had information, but there was it's just she had a lot up against her. Betty would not accept the offer of this emperor character. This doesn't have anything to do with zodiac signs, but she would not accept the offer of this emperor like energy. You said you had, okay, BB, I just got that. She wouldn't accept the offer of this emperor, so they tried to create scenarios and situations to ensure that the offspring would suffer. It's something of this nature. She would not accept payout from certain organizations and certain persons. It's the person who is responsible for, outside of those men who were convicted, are there still people who are alive to this day who are responsible for the hit on Malcolm X? there are, one of them, we do have interference with the reading, everyone. Okay, so everyone who's watching who wants to see this reading, there is a feminine interference. So just keep that in mind. Okay. The attributes are 48 to 49. Okay. There is interference. So make sure you put your guards up right now. Okay. I will deal with this energy, but there is interference. Okay. So with this situation here, there are people who are still alive. This emperor came out again. I want you to note that. Okay. This is someone who is a leader of an organization. Okay. There's someone who's in the public eye. Okay. This is someone who's very fiery in their temperament. You see this ball here? This is a person who is very much highly rooted in the occult. When we see the hermit here, this also can be a symbol for Masonic energy. Recently, their organization has taken a blow. Okay, there are properties being seized. I'm being told that they have been saved by the IRS. They have immense tax debt that they have not been persecuted on, but they may not be getting, like, in the upcoming years we may hear about this tax debt that originally was forgiven, but is losing. Like, there are people who are questioning the financials at the current moment. Okay, the hermit also talks about Virgo energy, but it is Masonic in energy. It is higher principalities in energy. It is grand wizard. I'm getting grand wizard of some sort. Someone who is in a lot. They're responsible for heads of state, as I'm being told. Okay. Of course, you have people who are the figurehead in certain organizations, but this person here is more than just a figurehead. They actually make suggestions to more than just those who are of the Nation of Islam, is what I'm being shown here. Okay. But there's a weakness in this organization as it relates to taxes. And there is a huge, there is maybe an effort in which they're being asked to pay up taxes, or taxes are being hidden because of their connection. There's something related to their taxes, to how the money is being spent. Okay? This is something that's going to come out. It's going to come out by way of the case. Okay? The other question you had, BB, you said, was the Nation of Islam and the FBI concluding together against him and his movement? They absolutely were. They absolutely were. This is what to be found out. It's going to, whenever we see this, this is going to be found out. They were absolutely at work. We saw this card before. Okay. There are people who are silenced within the organizations who have found this out, but they cannot speak because their life would be absolutely in danger because they are involved. but there will be justice that's brought upon these groups. But yeah, they were absolutely FBI. We have justice in the world card. They were absolutely in cahoots. And for this matter, we have the Three of Cups. There was something, I'm also getting that Malcom, it was either going to be Malcom or someone else in the organization, and Malcom was chosen. If Malcom didn't change his perspective, Malcom had what I'm being told now. Malcom had some sort of premonition beforehand of everything. This is one of the reasons why he started to change his tune and started to investigate things, from what I'm understanding, as it related to the Nation of Islam. He was propped up to be a scapegoat, but he chose, the reason why his life became in danger is he chose to question the Nation of Islam, their practices as it related to their people and their women. So he was set up and propped up to take the fall. He was set up to, this is one of the things the documentary did not talk about, but a part of his rise was to ensure that if things went crazy, he would be the scapegoat. He understood this before it went left, which is what gave them the ability to okay this. This was a group of people in cahoots with one another. It's like he was set up, even though he was the rising star of the Nation of Islam, he wasn't there for no reason. Okay? He was going to be a scapegoat of some sort because of the fire he brought for the organization he worked for. You know how I tell you guys about that energy? That energy of letting people boost you up, you know, that congratulatory energy, that superstar energy. Well, that's what we're seeing here. It was, even though they say that he was well loved, there was something devious even in him being the front man for the Nation of Islam. It was more than the FBI and the CIA who were responsible. Okay. Him showing his power as it related to the community also intimidated folks within the organization as well. So prior to him changing his stance and investigating and starting to separate from the Nation of Islam, at some point he was being dressed up to be the new target for the organization, while they had certain people in power that actually ran the organization. This is part of why his frustrations lied there, because with all of the power that he had to change and motivate men of this era to stand up for their beliefs collectively, the energy is telling me right now, and the room is starting to cool down. So a lot of those other questions you had, BB, I'm going to start asking, and any other questions anyone else has. It's almost like, even though he was the superstar, he was the sacrificial lamb anyway. So it was nothing for them to take him out when he started to go against their principles in their teachings. Wow. 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 And yes, they're absolutely still in cahoots. They're absolutely still in cahoots. You asked why Hoover? Why was J. Edgar Hoover involved in this? J. Edgar Hoover was not only watching Malcolm X and, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King, he was watching his wife. J. Edgar Hoover, and this is allegedly, okay, because this is going to be fucked up what I'm about to say. J. Edgar Hoover, the memory that's coming through, I believe that this is a feminine energy, the mother maybe of Malcolm X's children, but I'm hearing that there were phone calls to Betty Shabazz that threatened to rape her and her daughters. And these were white men. And this scared her so much because of the fact, this is one of the reasons, this is something that it could have come out in an autobiography. Okay. But this was something that was so horrible. They said they went as far as to say these things because they knew that these people would die for what they believed in. So what they basically tried to convince the Betty is that they would torture. There would be forms of torture. These people were very sick. Whatever the fuck this was, excuse my language, I know I'm cursing, and I apologize for those who, that bothers. But whatever this was, it was a very sadistic way of mentally causing him and the family to be distracted. What I'm seeing here is that she would even go to the grocery store. She was escorted to the grocery store. And something about there were people in place that even in places of solitude, she felt watched. Because she knew more information about what was going on with Malcolm prior to his public removal from the Nation of Islam. She received threats for even to release information even after the death of Malcolm X. We have Coretta here. They were very, very, very close. This was also done to Coretta witnessed some of this as well. There was something that Malcolm had and that Betty had that even in his death was dangerous against these organizations. Okay. Let me go to the bottom. I'm going to take a moment. He says, are the government tactics still the same ones? Last time I checked, COINTELPRO was current. Well, I'm seeing some things that are in place. You say, yeah. Yeah, they play mind games. They play severe mind games. Exactly. Exactly. Coretta is showing up. That's why a lot of what you guys think about that happened to Betty Shabazz with Betty Shabazz's grandson, a lot of this was information that they were trying to get. They, up until Betty died, they were trying to get information. And their number one job, from bugging the phone to some forms of injections to messing with the children's ability to earn money, to this day there's information as it relates, what I'm being shown as it relates to other countries, information about the Nation of Islam, and there's other information I can't make it out, that is even giving the lawyers confidence to go after this case. To even go after this case, there is information that they don't understand that she has. There are certain rights to land, I'm being told. Certain rights to buildings. There's some sort of connection to buildings in New York City. In one of the boroughs, I don't know if this is, I can't tell if it's Long Island, Brooklyn, the Bronx. I can't tell if this is there's land that should be owed to Betty Shabazz and her descendants. There are certain monies that were held back. Certain monies and income that was generated, that Malcolm helped generate for the Nation of Islam, that's being hidden, that has connection to other heads of state. It's not just Fidel Castro and his family and descendants. This is connected to Venezuela. There's a huge Venezuela connection here. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a huge connection to Argentina, to Venezuela. There's a huge connection. They're saying that there were figureheads in the Dominican Republic that they could not trust because they worked for Intel with the United States. There are connections to figureheads or people in Puerto Rico. There is something bigger than just what we can conceive of. Okay, there were certain things that Malcolm was doing that we don't know of, in which certain rights to people of color, if we're able to open this case and this case is able to see success, it would make the United States and any other country that is responsible. There would be a lot of charges held up against these organizations. I'm also being told here, let me go into the questions, because I want to stick to it, because a lot of this stuff I don't understand that I'm being told. It's something about a drop that happened right before the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, but after the death of Malcolm X. There were certain things that were done to the neighborhoods. There were certain things that were being done that Malcolm X was seeing. There were people who were in the Nation of Islam. They were in cahoots with these organizations that were going against the rights of the people. Okay? I'm being told that Martin, though he had a different ideology, and though he may be responsible for turning a blind eye to certain things, begin to get hip to certain information. And when he started to make these correspondences after the death of Malcolm X, this put his life on the line. It's something of that nature that's coming through. Exactly. Betty and Coretta were very close. Very close. Very close. Exactly. BB says the Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto retrograde was so awesome. You titled it "The Shift is Coming." Yeah, it is coming. It is coming. It's definitely here. It's definitely here. I'm going to tell you guys, be careful about, and I'm not going to say be careful. I'm not going to say be careful. What I'm going to say here is that what you're going to know about what's coming up, if you understood how some agents were brought in and are being used right now, it's not who you think it is, okay? It's not who you think it is. I'm going to start with some other questions that you gave me, BB. You said here, you wanted to know what he would do differently. I'm going to use a different set of cards for that question. Because as I'm looking at this, you asked me about trips. There's something dealing with the Niagara Falls. There's something dealing with something he's showing me. I don't know if this is him, but they're showing me Niagara Falls. They're showing me land bills. Something about land bills. Um one of the things that's coming through that I keep hearing, you've been sleep enough. You've been sleep enough. I guess I was thinking about that question that you asked about spiritual enlightenment. And one of the things that's coming through is that you've been sleep enough. You've been sleep enough. There's something that's coming and that none of us will be able to deny, but there's going to be a stark contrast. Don't think it's black and white, I'm being told. It's going to be a strong contrast between what is right and wrong. And some of the very people who claim, yeah, trapped in fear, emotional loss, okay? There is positive moving forward with wisdom, rejoice in celebration. But he's saying that we can't get to the truth because of discontent and boredom. We have a short attention span. We are weak-willed. We only go for people who are shouting to the crowd, and we're not really doing proper, thorough investigation. And if there is one person doing thorough investigation, they become tired and weak by their own they get their collar yoked in such a way that their own weaknesses overshadow the movement. And what I'm seeing here, but what he's saying, what I'm getting here is that there would be positive movement forward with wisdom and rejoicing celebration. We're too weak. We're weak now. He's saying what I'm getting here is they're saying that that meditation and stuff, while that is important for you to become centered, this whole construct, even down to the doing tarot readings, y'all, this is just coming straight the fuck up. Even down to this spiritualist, the things that we're doing are distractions because we are blocking the messages of revolution because we are distracted by our egos and seeking for self-fulfilling prophecies. What he's saying is the truth has always been there, but the will is weak. Meditation doesn't do anything for a weak will because character has been destroyed. There's a lot of character assassination or character assignment. He's saying that we are what I'm getting now, and I'm starting to get cold. But what I'm and this is when the real part of the reading is probably going to start, because there's an anger here. And it's not an anger like you see the YouTube priests and prophets, okay, and philosophers. It's not that kind of anger. It's not righteous indignation. It is frustration. What we're being told is that every damn thing is right in our faces. There are a series of events that we have been ignoring in favor of distraction and frivolity that are right in our faces, and we choose to ignore because the spirit is dead. The spirit is dead. I'm being shown this. I know that this is dark and this is taking, but what is happening here is the spirit needs to be reanimated. The spirit of confusion can only take us away so far. This is a willingness. There's a willingness to capitalize off of the spirit of the people and the movements they stood for, but there's lack of character and will to see it through because the will is weak. What is being said is the power that needs to be generated is not messages in which that falsely energize a base of people. The energy has to be generated from something from the past. The energy has to be generated something from the past. If you knew the truth, there would be more outcry. It was a method that was enacted to put you in a state of dormancy. And it continues with the newer generation. I'm being told to just shuffle and freestyle. I'm going to get to the questions, but I'm being told to just shuffle and freestyle. The spirit is saying that you all are still dormant. You're still dormant. There are certain people who are aware, but they don't understand exactly what's going on. They're feeding bits and parts of the information, but they're not strong enough yet. The will is weak. He said that he's already, what I'm getting here is that spirit, you can't exonerate him. And those men made their choices. The goal of the case now is to see what it is that Malcom had information. He's saying that there's information about what this country, there's something about something with Irish. I can't, is it the KGB? Something connected to the KGB? Something connected to KGB. I'm also hearing France is involved in this. And there's some sort of cover up about certain lands and bills that possibly those who were involved in his assassination had agreements with these groups. We need new passion ignited, stand your ground, partnership and allies. This is where the base has to be. There's no room for error. And it's more than just people of color that's affected. Because there's certain doctrines, certain things that were put in food, certain things that were put in airwaves, and certain ways that people were taught things that are responsible for the breaking of the spirit. Movement, choices and decisions, authority, and disruption. There has to be a disruption in the powers that be in order to have movement, choices, and decisions. We're not, there's still a weakness here. is what I'm being shown. There's no unity to get this done. There has to be strength in numbers. There has to be a different type of passion ignited. The passion that's ignited right now is for some sort of selfish gain. It's going to take patience and planning. I'm going to get to some of the questions. Okay, BB, I got it, babe. Thank you for that. I just got that message. Yeah, hit me up as soon as I'm done, because I got you, and we can just chit chat. Okay. The message is coming for the incarcerated youths and adults. You were meant to be. You were meant to be incarcerated. You were, with all of this going on, this was in the plan. There were plans. Everything is a plan. Every single thing, down to what happened with in the 60s, the 70s, with the government jobs, the drugs, to the 80s. Everything was a plan. I'm being shown that what Malcolm was able to get, because he had people who also had people watching folks in the CIA and FBI. This man was absolutely fucking brilliant. Okay? Malcolm X was absolutely brilliant. There were moles that worked for him, that loved him, that were also in the FBI and CIA. This is what we don't know. There was a plan. There's actually a plan to disseminate certain groups of people, is what I'm being shown. So the message for those who are incarcerated is to wake up, because that is a form of slave trade and labor. Everything was a plan. This didn't happen by coincidence. Nothing happened by coincidence. The state of people today was a plan. Patience and planning. The balance card is the Magician in the tarot. Everything was planned to work this way. Even down to the leaders that we see today, where they knew about this. Sacral chakra, this is the creative center. When you talk about creativity, when we talk about what's truth, creativity is a lie. As it relates to truth, lie and truth. Everything was a plan. This plan was set up well. And that we don't have a clue. Some of us don't have a clue of what these documents contain. And the people are very weak and are very distracted. It's what I'm being shown here. Let me ask the question that you asked me. What would he do differently? He's showing me that there are sects within, there are different sects all the way going back to the Vatican, that no one is safe. That a lot of people had their hands. They were trading the lives of people the way that you trade people in the stock market. That these people, down to certain sciences and medicines, they were trading on the lives of people who were, oh my God. That's how I'm seeing this. And mind you, this is for entertainment. This is allegedly, but I got to say it the way it's coming out. They traded on people like you do in the stock market, from city to city. It was a game. He did the best that he could do. And even towards the end of it, trying to find some solace. But the trips he made to Mecca were not just because he wanted to see different, that right there, what I'm being told, that was some sort of fabrication to pacify the people about this world love. I'm seeing that there were human rights cases that are connected to the Nation of Islam. And he went, it's something about him going over to Mecca because there's a connection between those groups. I can't say one way or the other, but to certain groups, this right here has connections with some, even some child trafficking, even in Africa, Libya, and in other Muslim countries. Yes, he had his spiritual connection to some of these countries. I mean, spiritual connection to his belief. But what these documents show, y'all, this is crazy as hell right here. But there's a connection to what's happening right now as far as trafficking that goes back to even crimes and things that were committed in the days of Malcolm X, bitch. I would be surprised if this video gets a lot of views. I honestly would be. I would be surprised. We're going to do a part 2 and a part 3. I will structure it more, but I would be heavily surprised. Deception and envy. Solar plexus, this is ego. Choose wisely. When you ask the question of what he would do different, the biggest thing I'm getting is he said that he allowed his ego to blind him from deception and envy and choosing wisely before it was too late. And it's not ego like you like people make you think, or even, not the negative ego that people talk about. That's not what we're talking about right here. That's not what we're talking about right here. When I talk about this kind of ego, I'm saying that his passion for what he was doing at times that were critical for him to see the truth blinded him. Things that hit his crown, things that came to him, and that was responsible for his transformation. He said that if he could have done anything different, he would have listened a lot sooner. We got 3 7s, 7 of swords, crown chakra, that's a 7, and we also have 7 of cups. We have the number 3 and we have 13 on the board. This right here is 21 that reduces down to the number 3. We have 3, we have 13, that's 4. He would have seen the truth. That would have caused a disruption in the universe. What he's also saying is that at the time, it wasn't time. There's something that I keep getting, some kind of scroll or doctrine or plan for people that dates back to World War II. Something about World War II as it connects to people, and the movement of people and the beliefs of people, from World War II, things that were enacted from World War II to carry out some sort of plan. He's saying here that it's actually bigger than race, and we will see this. It's bigger than race, but the tests were done with people of melanated background. So don't get it twisted. It was an assault on people of color. But what I'm being shown now is that whatever this plan, the tests were done, the control tests with people and groups of people were being done, but that these tests are to the results of the test will be unleashed unto the populace. That it's not going to matter if you are black, white, Mexican, Asian, or anything. It is going to be done. And we were the original test. This couldn't have been carried out if people of color were allowed to be or left alone. If Black Wall Street continued to stand, if the turn of the century that produced Black people who were Renaissance people, okay, mind you, this whole construct of being ghetto is something that is new as of the last 40 years. The whole construct of being ghetto or being hood is not what we were originally. Does that make any sense? This was studied on how to break down a people of exemplary status, because in order for slavery to have been abolished in what was, and within 50 to 40 years, people of color coming out of slavery to have their own universities in their own communities, this doesn't show a people who were unintelligent. This whole construct of being hood or being ghetto was something that was downloaded into the people as an example of what was done to people of Irish descent. I'm being shown that in the slums in Ireland and in parts of England. Those ways that those WASP handled those people to ensure that they were impoverished mentally and spiritually, what were plans that were enacted on people of color here in the United States in any colonialized place. Well, not, it's very concentrated here in the United States to ensure that you would become savage like unto your own people. What we see, the product we see today was engineered. It was not the nature of the people. The spirit was broken, and this is where we get hood mentality or ghetto. Because the descendants of the slaves and of the indigenous people were brilliant. That was what I'm comfortable. That's about as far as I'm comfortable going with this reading. I'm going to say that this is part one. This reading has went on for an hour and a half. And I am going to have a part two to this and a part three, God willing, because we have a lot of questions. But this went away from the case. The case on the assassination of Malcolm X, it's not just the veneration of the two gentlemen, aside from the one who, and what I'm seeing with the one, he believed in what he was doing. He wasn't a part of the actual setup. He was a hitman. So contrary to popular belief, his tune changed when it became understandable what was going on and what he was a part of. Okay? This case is bigger than what we just believe that is going to exonerate these two men. is connected to some universal things and information. That's all. That's really as far as my spirit can go tonight. We will take care of the individual who is responsible for the interference here. We will take care of that to ensure that it doesn't make rear its head again for the second and third reading. But this is major, okay? I'd like to thank each and every one of you. I know that you guys may have more questions. In the second part, we can go into the questions, but this went somewhere else that I wasn't expecting. And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that I was feeling a spirit of something that was coming in, and hoping that this would awaken people to the truth, but it's going to take more than what we see. We literally are being sung a lullaby. And this is bigger than what we think it is. Okay. I love you guys. I'm gonna end here. That was a lot. Oh my goodness. I know, Tawanda. I know. That was a lot. That was a lot. That was a lot. You couldn't you couldn't if we had have stayed, if Black Wall Street had have stayed, and those organizations and the colleges, the HBC CUs that we have now have been infiltrated. Had things stayed the way they were, as far as we consider it to be Black excellence, there wouldn't have been a group to start the ground zero, or of the degeneration of peoples. There was a sacrifice that was made. This sacrifice is much larger, okay, than what you think it is. The whole construct of welfare, for what it turned into, the whole construct was a sacrifice on the backs of people of color for the damnation of the whole world. We just were at ground zero for the testing. Okay. Like I said, I didn't expect this to be super positive, but it got real fast. So we're going to leave this here, and then we will return. I'm going to need at least 2 weeks to even do the second reading. Okay. All right. I thank you guys for being present, for being my ushers, for ushering in this, and we'll see what comes out. I love you guys. We're gonna get to the bottom of it. Give me at least 2 weeks to record the second and third parts, but we got to get some questions answered and go from there. Okay. I love each and every one of you. Y'all have a good night. And BB, I'll be watching out for your email. Okay. Much love, everyone. Peace. Exactly. Let me say that before we leave. The ghetto was a centuries old European concept that they used to house people. Let's put that on the screen here, because a lot of people are ignorant. They think that being hood is something that they decided for themselves, and you couldn't be far from what's wrong. Learn your history instead of blowing out a bunch of hot air. The ghetto was a centuries old European concept that they used to house people they claimed as undesirables, which really just meant they felt threatened because of their incompetence. There you go. Knowledge is power, everybody. That's where it is. Okay. Love y'all. We'll talk soon. Peace.